Okay, thank you everybody for being here tonight. We are on our week number 8 of our In.Form transformation journey. Tonight we get to talk about emotions and how our gut and our emotional status can be intricately related to each other, how when one can go one way, the other can go the other way, and vice versa. And so we're going to make sure everybody has a really good understanding that sometimes the emotions that we experience, maybe not the emotion itself, but the velocity of that emotion can actually come from a gut imbalance as well. So we're going to be talking about that tonight. Last week, of course, we had my most favorite module of the whole series, which was on sugar. And I hope everybody enjoyed that. I had one request already for a video to rewatch it again, so I think that's really good news. It must have turned out well. But my biggest question is I challenged everybody, did anybody get a chance to tell anybody about Coke? About what Coke does in an hour? Anybody?
Yeah.
Huh?
I told my brother-in-law about it.
You told your brother-in-law. Nice job. All right. He's a Coke fanatic?
Yeah.
You told somebody about it too, Lynn? Wonderful. Great. Thanks for meeting the challenge, ladies. That's wonderful. The other thing that I did forget last week was one other really super important fact about sugar. And you guys ready? Sugar, when you ingest sugar, it will reduce your immune system by 50% for 6 hours. So when you eat sugar, and it doesn't have the fiber with it, such as the apple or the other balancing protein or fat to go with it, literally it will reduce your immune system from functioning by 50% for 6 whole hours. And I've had several informers come back and tell me they would go on a plane, maybe they had a really good time going on their vacation where they were going, they came back, everybody else wasn't feeling well, but yet they had sugar, whether it was in the form of alcohol or just splurging, and then they come back and then they don't feel well. And in fact, that's a lot of times like when people do come back from vacation, they don't feel so well because they ate more sugar, and then it opens them up and exposes them more to bacteria and viruses and any microbes that may be exchanged in shaking hands or on doorknobs or wherever you may actually exchange those microbes, those bacteria and viruses. So a very important fact is we understand. I know I always tell my children, if any of them are starting to get a little bit of a cough or I see a runny nose coming on, goes to sugar. We don't do any more sugar, because if we do sugar, it's like opening the door to that virus or that bacteria to go in there and take over the body, because the immune system is like bogged down with dealing with that sugar. And so that's really important at remembering when we're trying to keep ourselves healthy and immune from things going on, especially with us creeping into flu season. I mean, that's a really big thing. I mean, your body can stay really strong if you don't eat a bunch of sugar and go around people who've had the flu or where that flu virus is active. So a really good point to remember.
And you said for how long, Charlie?
For 6 hours. For 6 hours.
Got it. Thank you.
And something else I forgot to share in class 1 last week was about the sugar industry and the fat industry, and how they were doing some studies in the 80s and 90s, and they were trying to figure out what the main culprit of cardiovascular disease was, and they actually found out it was sugar. And sugar, the sugar industry decided it had too much money to spend and wanted to make sure that it wanted to protect itself, actually recreated the studies and altered the studies to make it look like fat was the main reason for cardiovascular disease. In fact, I have a copy of an article here, so if anybody wants a copy of this article that fully explains the controversial sugar industry and how it's highly linked to cancer as well. But literally this whole article exposes the sugar industry for the cover-up for making us all think that it was fat. And that's one of the reasons why no fat, low fat, fat-free, all of this stuff came out, is simply just because, you know, the sugar industry covered up what was really going on. And that's why we see so many fat-reduced items, is because we've kind of got it clogged in our brain. We've been indoctrinated with the fact that it's a big culprit, and it's really, really not. So, hi Pam.
Hi.
Come on in. All right, so I wanted to make sure I shared that with y'all as well. Anybody have any other thoughts from the sugar module? Any other questions before we move on to tonight's? Deal? We're all good? All right, okay, so the emotional world of eating. There is a powerful driving force in everyone. And of course, this is by Anthony Robinson, a very popular motivational speaker. But we have a powerful driving force in everyone. And I would say probably that powerful force could be kind of unique and different to each individual depending on their spirituality practice and what they believe in. But really, we all have a powerful driving force, and we're really going to add that to our module tonight on the emotional world of eating. And so I will bring more information out on that a little bit later on. Brenda, if you want to follow along with us, let me give you a manual here so that we don't have to look over Regina's shoulder unless you want to. Okay, so of course, week 8 is also our measurement week, but a lot of you will actually be doing measurements next week, so we'll get back to everybody on measurements next week. So, all right. Words are powerful. This is something that I bring forward in this particular module because I think words have a very big impact on our daily lives. Word is very important at creating our environment and creating our reality. And so we need to understand the importance of our words, especially when we are in highly emotional situations. Because emotion, as it is in of itself, actually will create words and make words more powerful. You can actually make more things a reality when you put emotion behind it. So I want to be sure that we all have a really good understanding of words and how they affect our lives on a daily basis and on the lives of those people who are around us. So when you think about it, thought comes before word. And thought plus word equals an action. So when we remember that, thoughts, hello, come on in, family.
Hey, wait. You guys have to hang out back here. You got a chair right there.
Another chair back in here, maybe.
Hey, stay on that.
All right, so thought, word, action. So what we have to remember that every action starts with a thought. And some of us may have a few different beliefs on where thoughts come from. Some of them think that it comes from within ourselves. Some people think it comes from maybe some outside force, something else that may be kind of planting thoughts into our head. But this is where we really have the most control over what happens in our reality, in our lives. If we realize we have a thought, and that thought is not so pretty, we have an option at that time to continue the pace with that thought into word, which will create an action, or we have the option to actually drop that thought, not own it, not allow it to be a part of us as who we are and who we choose to be, so therefore we don't get an action, okay? A really good example of this is having an argument with a loved one. We get high emotions going on, words start being said, and then there's action that follows that. Somebody's hurt. Maybe somebody, you said something that you shouldn't have said. That's really hard to take back because that word actually takes us into a different reality of what's going on and what we're creating. So we really need to think about our thoughts and take a step back before we let it go into a word, because we know that there's going to be an action that goes along with this. And for those of you who are just joining us, the reason we're talking about this because this module is about the emotional world of eating. And emotions and words are very powerful together. Words alone are very powerful by themselves. But when you combine emotion with word, you're going to get some kind of reaction. This is where miracles can come from, right? Miracles can come from emotion and belief and faith and putting that word out there, and then you can actually create an action with that. Right? Mm-hmm. Right? So we do this every day in our lives, even on a small scale. Another really good example where we need to think about what happens and how words can affect our being and what goes on with our emotions is, let's say you go to the grocery store and you go to pull out and somebody just pulls up right behind you, and either they nick you or they almost run into you or whatever, I mean, you actually get to decide where kind of energy you want to go with that from there. Or let's say you go into the grocery store and you've got somebody who's checking you out and they're not having a good day at all. They just don't want to be there. That energy spreads.
Oh, yeah.
That energy will just infiltrate you if you allow it to. And this is where these thoughts sometimes come in from the outside. I always use this explanation because this is the best one. So I go to the grocery store. I'm having a kind of a tough day anyways, but I'm all right. I'm even keeled. If I go to the grocery store, maybe I just have a checker that just has had a bad day, and for some reason I take on that energy of that person and that rough attitude that they're putting out. And then I'm yelling and I'm screaming at my children because of something they did that maybe I wouldn't have yelled and screamed at them if I wouldn't have been influenced or allowed myself to be influenced with the thought and the emotions of the checker, right? And then we get home and chaos is all loose, right? And then Dad comes home and he's like, what is going on? And that's how we can carry that energy and that emotion, and it affects not just us, affects our children, affects our spouse, affects anybody we touch between the grocery store and home. Or the person who goes out in front of you in a lane while you're driving down the road and then hits the brakes and turns. You know what I'm saying? I mean, all of those things create emotion in our body, but we get to choose what we want to do with it. This is where we get choice. There's nothing wrong with emotion. There's nothing wrong. Emotions are powerful. Like I said, emotions can help create miracles, right? But emotions can also help create really bad situations where we hurt people's feelings. And it's hard for someone to forget those things. When it's been said out of your mouth, it's difficult to take that back. It's very difficult. You got to use a lot of action to work on reducing that word, right? A lot of action has to take place.
No matter how many times you go back and try to fix it.
No matter how many times, it's always there. Always there. And that's just because we're emotional beings. And that's how we were created. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with any of that except for the fact that what we need to do is we need to realize it starts with our thoughts. It starts with where we allow ourselves and our brains to go. And what we feed our guts is going to trigger that one way or the other. If we're triggering our gut with sugars, processed foods, chemicals that we don't need in our body, that can trigger our emotions into a tailspin that really gets hard. It feels hard to control it. Or if we eat correctly and that microbiome in the gut is happy, you come across somebody who kind of feeling raw, it's easier to overcome. It's easier just to, they're just having a tough day. I'll leave them, they'll be in my thoughts, they'll be in my prayers, whatever that, however you may handle that, right? It's easier just to move on. But if we don't feed ourselves right, it makes it a lot harder for us to control what's going on. There's more drama, there's more emotion, there's more everything. Because that sugar, woo-wee, that can really put us into a tailspin if we're not careful. We're going to keep talking about this. Something else that Tony Robinson says, everything we do is 80% mental and 20% action. The more time you spend in your head on something, the more it's going to be created. I use this with my children a lot. Instead of telling them what I don't want them to do in my highly emotional voice, I tell them what I want them to do. If that makes any sense. Because a lot of times the last things, especially children, and all people, but especially children here, is like, don't throw that glass cup. What's the last thing we heard? Throw the glass cup, right? Or throw the cup, or throw, you know what I'm saying? So when we speak what we want to have happen, opposed to what we don't want to have happen, that can make a really big difference as well. If we're always thinking we don't have enough money, if we're always thinking that somebody's out to get us, if we're always thinking that things just, if it's not my mom, if it's not one thing, it's another, and I get that. But at the same time, that creates more of that. Because you allow yourself to live in that reality. You allow yourself to live in that presence of that situation. Does that make sense? So we need to think about what kind of reality do we want to live in. Because the words that come off our tongue is going to help us create that reality. Part of the Nature Sunshine Convention actually this year, they had a motivational speaker that talked a lot about words and about, he shared about how what he did, and he loved his family greatly, but what he did is he created special words for each person in his family. Like he called his wife his angel, his beautiful angel. And he called one of his children his, inventive engineer. And another one was some kind of an amazing soccer player. I don't remember what it is, but some kind of athlete, But he literally experimented with calling these people that he loved in his life these special names. And it created more and more happiness and joy in their lives and in their reality. Because instead of being told, you're just not quite good enough, or, you didn't do that right. He was filling them with positive, building words on a regular basis. And he did this experiment for years. And he teaches people now how to use that. So it's kind of like if you want a new vehicle, because you're not completely happy with the one you have now, or it's just time, it's old, whatever it is. You got to appreciate what you have before you can go to that next level, right? You got to have gratitude for what you have now. I always tell my children, so if you want more, then be thankful for what you have now. Because the only way you're going to get more is you're thankful for what you have now. Because that positive energy of being grateful and thankful for whatever it is, whether it's the roof over your house, or that bonus check that just came in from out of nowhere, whatever it is, the more grateful you are, the more you will get. Because your whole reality of your thoughts and your words create the action of making that present for you. So I want to make sure we all have a really good understanding of all that. Any questions before we move forward? Your words are very powerful at evoking results in your life. Words shape your reality. If you can just remember that words shape your reality, that in of itself will help you decipher in each and every moment of each and every day where you want to go, what kind of life you want to have, and what do you got to do to it. And I know sometimes it's hard, it's really tough, because we all have bad days. All of us do. Has anybody in here never had a bad day? Has anybody in here never had less than 5 bad days? Yeah, you guys? Yeah, I'll bet you haven't. What's back there like, bad day, what's that? We got our mama, we got food, we got clothes, we got our daddy, what else could we want, right? Seriously, that's beautiful, beautiful. But we all have bad days. It's just a matter of learning how to navigate those bad days and turn them into good days for us. One other analogy I just thought of. I know I said I was going to move on. So you wake up in the morning, you get out of bed, and you stub your toe. And it's like, oh, dang, this is going to be a bad day. What's going to happen? Literally, it's going to be a bad day. Instead of stubbing your toe, jumping around, going, ow, 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 you're like, well, glad I got that out of the way. The rest of the day is going to be great now that that's out of the way. Right? You get to change your reaction. You get to change how you deal with it. So anyway, I like analogies on this because I think a lot of us can start to relate to it. So let's get to our manual, The Emotional World of Eating, page number 63. Your mind and body are extremely connected. So when your emotions are unbalanced, your gut's microbiome is unbalanced as well. Your thoughts are often the root source of your habits. So why you eat? You are why you eat. Food is a support system in so many ways. It fuels us, it entertains us. Everything we do in our society evolves around food. There's a funeral, we eat. There's a wedding, we eat. There's a birthday, we eat. We just get together with the girls, we eat, right? Everything we do is centered around food.
When we sit up watching television, we
We eat. Exactly, exactly. And while there's nothing wrong with eating, the problem is when we start talking about emotions, is a lot of times we hide our emotions in food. And this is why this module is called as it is, the emotional world of eating. Because when we get in group situations, and maybe we're a little uncomfortable, or maybe somebody said something that you're just kind of like, what? You know? Sometimes we can turn our reaction into food and hide behind food instead. Everything we do in our society is centered around food. Look at this. In January of 2013, a poll was done by 1,300 psychologists. They cited emotions as the top obstacle to weight loss. Emotions, not what you ate, not how much you ate, not how many times you exercised, but your emotions being the top reason for why you may not be able to lose weight if that's something you were trying to do. We can't avoid overwhelming events, such as losing our jobs, failed relationships, illness, financial problems, or stress. We can't get out of it. It's just part of our path. It's part of our journey. This is where we get our choices at. But the best way to keep our emotions from interfering with our wellness routine is to listen to them. We have to recognize them. We have to embrace them. So if you're having a bad day, it's okay. It's totally okay, but what can you do about it now? Because you get to choose where it goes. When you gain awareness about why you are eating, you become more in control of your habits. So as you start to recognize any emotions you have in different social situations, especially when food is around that, this is going to help you make better and different decisions moving forward. We want to stop playing the Hunger Games. The first steps to curbing emotional eating is recognizing when you're doing it. With IN.Form, we eat smaller, balanced, more frequent meals. And by eating on this schedule, we are less likely to experience strong cravings. We are more likely to control our emotions when our blood sugars haven't dipped way below the limit, and we're feeling unfocused or irrational or angry. Nettie has a word for it. She said it's hangry. Hungry and angry all together. Angry. If anybody's ever had low blood sugar levels, you probably have experienced it if you've been around somebody who's like that. You don't get enough protein on a regular basis. I mean, it can just take your day out from underneath your feet. But that's one of the reasons why eating these small, balanced meals every 2 to 3 hours is so important. This is why it's so important to get that protein in first thing in the morning. So we can start taking control of our day from the moment we wake up. It's just like those of you who may have a spiritual practice that you do first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning you get up and you connect, right? You connect. And you connect so it can brighten your day and it can give you focus for the day, right? Food does the same thing. We've got to cover that from all angles. So physical hunger versus emotional hunger. Physical hunger comes on gradually and it can be postponed. But emotional hunger comes on suddenly and it feels urgent. If I don't get that donut now, heads are going to roll. Physical hunger can be satisfied with any type of food. Where emotional hunger causes specific cravings, pizza, ice cream, chocolate, whatever it may be. Physical hunger, once you're full, you can stop eating comfortably. You got control. But with emotional hunger, you eat more than you normally would and you feel uncomfortably full. Physical hunger causes satisfaction, but it doesn't cause guilt. But emotional hunger leaves you feeling guilty and cross with yourself. And the interesting thing about this is, what you eat during an emotional distress will determine what kind of emotions will come next. So whatever you decide to eat during an emotionally distressed time period will determine what kind of emotions come next. You're beating yourself up, angry with yourself because you gave in, and or if maybe you've made a right choice, and then you can pat yourself on the back and you can switch the energy of that day in that moment, what's going on. All right, page number 65. Your patterns at play. Once you know the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger, Then you can begin to study what your emotional patterns look like. And this is one of the things we're going to do for our homework this week. As every time you go to eat, I want you to do an emotional self-check. Where am I at emotionally? Why am I eating right now? Am I eating because Shar says I need to eat every 2 to 3 hours and it's about that time? Or am I eating because I just got off the phone with these creditors and they're driving me crazy? But look and see what's going on. Identify yourself as one of the 5 types of overeaters. Now there's actually 6. I add a new one. But let's look at this. First of all, we have the compulsive eater. This person is the one who's constantly thinking about food. Just whatever they're doing, they're constantly thinking about food. Food's like their escape. They're just thinking about it, right? The impulsive eater is easily tempted or distracted. He's like, oh, hey, Girl Scout cookies. Remember how much I...
Yeah.
Right? Combination of compulsive and compulsive and impulsive overeater. So then we got a combination of those two. Number 4 is a sad overeater. Struggles with loneliness, boredom, or low self-esteem. Just don't know what to do with themselves. They just might as well eat. Right? My mom was that way. Anxious overeater. Food calms the storms in the brain. Frequently nervous. You got all this stuff going on in your head, and if for some reason when you eat, it just takes you out of it for a bit. Number 6 is a person who doesn't eat when emotions strike. I'm one of those, yours truly. It's funny because before IN.Form, when I was trying to lose weight after having the 5 babies, right? And doing everything I knew what to do correctly, right? Michael would say to me, well, I don't understand why you're gaining weight or you're not losing weight because you don't eat very much. How many times have you heard that from somebody? They don't eat very much. When you don't eat, your body goes into starvation mode, and we're going to learn more about that when we get to the glandular and the hormonal section. But when you don't eat when you're stressed, if I didn't have to eat and worry about cooking food and making stuff for myself all day long, it would just, to me, it would almost like relieve an immense amount of stress. But unfortunately, that's not healthy for me. Because what it does for me means I don't slow down. I don't take time for myself. I don't do what I need to do for me to be healthy, to take care of everybody else. Right? That's that person who just wants to take care of everybody else, and they can't take care of themselves last. And you can only do that so long. Only do that so long. So I propose the number 6 that you add on this is the person who doesn't eat. Because when they get stressed, when I get stressed, I would prefer not to eat. In fact, it almost makes my stomach turn to think about eating when I'm stressed out. And my emotions are high. But then I got to take a step back, change my direction, move out of the situation or whatever's going on, take a little time, eat something light, easy to do. Help me collect and move forward. Okay? The best way to identify your patterns is to track your emotions along with your food journal. This is a great place to do that. It will allow you to recognize when and why you are being sent off course. You know, if you have a birthday week and people come into town and, you know, everybody gets together, that's cool, right? But at the same time, you know, you may have a week where, man, you know, the car breaks down, you know, got to figure out how to pay the light bill next week. Something's going on with one of your children, grown-up children, you know. Then you got to look at the differences, what's going on. Without overeating as a distraction, you may have to confront your emotions in a way you haven't before. We hide our emotions in food constantly. For those of you who celebrate Thanksgiving or get together with the family, and you know Uncle Ned's going to be there, and Uncle Ned is just, oh man, he just puts everybody down. He does just kind of just negative. Negative. Nobody likes what he says. He picks on your mom, whatever, you know? You're just like clashing heads. So you're sitting there at the table just, I'm just going to keep eating, instead of opening my mouth, listening to this. We hide ourselves in those situations. And that's where food gets the best of us. But we've got to confront our emotions. We've got to find some way to allow ourselves to move through those emotions. You can't stuff emotions. Remember I said earlier, emotion. Motion is the main word of of emotion, right? Without the E. It's got motion to it. How can you stuff something down that has motion and think it's going to go away? Is not. So we've got to find a way to address these emotions and allow them to move through and be released and not affect our daily life or the lives of the people that are around us, especially those that we love. So there's a part of us that really needs to embrace them. We need to find other ways to deal with it. Exercise is a really good way. That's how I deal with my stress and my emotions. If I can exercise, I can just beat it out on the elliptical. That helps me just let it move through. And I'm calmer, and I'm more relaxed, and I'm more focused at dealing with whatever the situation is, if I can just exercise. Sometimes journaling, writing, is another really good way. Put it somewhere. I know back in the day I was doing a bunch of different research on how to deal with emotions, and there was one person who said, write it all down and burn it. Write all that negative stuff down, get it out, put it on a piece of paper, and then burn it. It's gone. Poof. It's very symbolic of being able to let something go. Pray, meditate. It's another really good way to handle the situation. Turn it over. Turn it over. Realize it's not just your burden to carry alone, right? So you need to find avenues that will help you deal with these emotions. And that may be different for each and every one of you here. But we've got to find a way to deal with it that doesn't involve eating. Okay? All right. Alrighty, page number 66. Let me catch up with myself here real quick. All right, so the most important ingredient for success is self-love. This is the most important ingredient. Remember, this is a marathon. It is not a sprint. That is why we have 13 weeks to knock this thing out. We take baby steps each and every day. Each and every week we work on a different thing. Increasing our water, exercising a little bit more, reading our labels, whatever it may be, for a culmination of a new lifestyle that's going to support our healthy journey that we're all wanting to take. We need to practice patience and self-love instead of thinking, tomorrow I'm going to change everything. We need to change now, not tomorrow, not next week, not January 1st, right? We need to start now. But it's not perfection that we're looking for. It's just progress. Just progress. If none of us made mistakes, per se, I don't really believe in mistakes, but I'm just saying that for the general idea of what we're talking about. If none of us ever did that, I mean, life would be really boring, wouldn't it? We wouldn't have anything to learn from. We wouldn't have anything to grow from. We wouldn't have any experience to help someone else. Because sometimes our mistakes are just an experience that's there for us to help someone else. But we've got to have them to be able to do them, right? One guy I was listening to, he said, KRS-One, I really like listening to him. You guys might not know who he is, but he's a rapper from the 80s. You know him? Oh, that man is awesome. Very powerful in his thought process. He said, you can't teach a kid from the Bronx how to survive in the Bronx if you never lived in the Bronx. You know, if you grew up in the rich neighborhood, you can't. So sometimes we have these experiences in our lives so we can help other people. And that's important for us to remember too. We can't have all this self-hatred and all this self-negativity. We got to have self-love, because self-love will allow us to help others with our experiences that may not have been so great. Good example of this is your parents. I mean, if you've got a parental situation where maybe you just didn't have the best parental situation. Maybe you just didn't have what we should have. But what it taught you is something that's going to make you stronger, and it's going to give you a choice on what you want to continue the patterns of. This is when we really need to remember our whys. Remember our whys from the first 90 days, and then we checked in again on them. I think week 6 is when I had you guys check in on them again, or week 5. This is when we need to remember why we are doing what we're doing. Why are we involved in this class? Why are we meeting up with like-minded people who are also wanting to be healthier from the inside out? Why? This will help us motivate ourselves. And remember, we're doing this because of self-love. We're doing this to love ourselves. And when we love ourselves, we love all the people around us as well. Remind yourself what is more important. Is it your why, or is it a temporary distraction? What's more important, your why or the temporary distraction? One of the products they show you here at the bottom of page 66 is called Anxious List. I love this particular product. And this is one of the very few herbal products that works really quickly. And Anxious List, what it does, it helps to calm the nerves, helps to kind of get that storm under control, the anxiousness, the irritability, on edge feeling. It really helps to pull that down. It helps to get a person to focus. And I love this particular product, like I said. Promotes confidence and security, improves your mood by reducing fatigue, and offers a safe, non-habit forming product. But I'll give you handouts on this particular product, so you guys have got a little bit of information. And I've got some samples for our current informers. Oh, where'd that come from? I don't know where that came from. Okay. All right. They're not wanting to come apart. Here we go. Maybe Pam's will get a couple back there to some of our other people. Okay. And then take one of those. But Anxious List works with Zembrin, which is specifically from a South Africa plant, or American, South American or South African? South African, yes, a South African herb. And it has L-theanine in it. Can anybody tell me what L-theanine would possibly be? Lynn knows. Breakdown of protein. Amino acid. L-theanine is the amino acid known to help with the brain. Help the brain to be more calm and to work more effectively. Okay? Plus we've got thiamine, magnesium, and zinc in this. And it was like I said, we've had some really good results with that. So I'll give you guys some samples before you leave tonight of that. Something else I want to discuss with y'all is a bouquet of remedies, page number 67. Has anybody here heard of flower essences? Anyone? So flower essences are different than essential oils or herbs. Now herbs are food, okay? Herbs are plants. Then we've got essential oils, which are oils that specifically come from some particular plants that give us a wonderful smell, such as the lemongrass we've got going tonight. That's an essential oil, putting off the volatile oil of the lemongrass, which induces all sorts of different emotions that go through the olfactory nervous system, which is your smelling system. It actually causes chemical reactions in your brain. But then we have something called flower essences. So herbs work with the body from a physical standpoint of nutrition, but flower essences work on a more of an energetic level. What flower essences do is very similar to acupuncture, where you've got these certain different meridians and nerve pathways in the body, and when they're blocked, then you don't have the proper flow of energetic value going on. Same thing happens when we're talking about flower essences. It has a lot to do with your emotions. Flower essences actually were first discovered by I want to say German, but anyways, it was Europe. A doctor who was in Europe, and he worked at a terminally ill cancer clinic or cancer institution. Everybody there was terminally ill with cancer. And he was seeing how he would have two individuals with the same progression of cancer, same placement, same everything, a very close to identical family history. Everything was the same on paper. But yet one of them would heal and one of them wouldn't. And on paper, you couldn't figure out why. Fed them the same stuff, gave them the same treatment, did everything the same, but yet one lives and one dies. And he studied this for years, trying to figure out what was going on, and he started to realize it had to do with the emotions. It had to do with the thought patterns these people were having. If they were upbeat, positive people, and they had upbeat, positive people around them, they had more of a chance of survival. But if they were a Debbie Downer, negative, and had negative people coming in around them all the time, they passed. And it was because of the energetic value of what was going on within that individual, their emotions, that was causing that. So he went out to try and find what he could do to actually address emotions and help to move and steer those emotions in a direction that would be more positive for his patients that were wanting to heal. And he came up with flower essences. And flower essences is literally the dew off of particular plants first thing in the morning. And there's an energetic value from that it gets from that energy from the sun. And what they do is they take that dew and they can compound it and basically make more of it, like you do with kefir. You know, how you can just make more and more and more from the same batch originally. And these particular flower essences can actually work on particular emotions. They can work on anger, whether it's expressed anger or whether it's stifled anger. It can work on loneliness. It can work with somebody who wants to control, or somebody who lets everybody run over them, lets everybody, everybody take, and they let them do it. So these flower essences will literally help us with that, because literally, one thing we need to remember is for total and optimal health, there are 4 major keys. You don't want to work, do you? I apologize, guys. This just came to me and I want to put it on paper. I think it'll, not on paper, but write it down. I think you guys will have a better understanding of what I'm talking about. If we are looking for optimal health has 4 main components: spiritual health, physical health, mental health, and emotional health. When all 4 of these components come together, we have optimal health. We can spend all day in prayer and on building our spirituality. But if we never take care of our physical side, it's going to make it very difficult for us to share that information. If we don't work on our emotional selves, it's going to be very difficult for us to have an optimal health and be able to do the things we want to do physically. If you're depressed, you don't want to get out and physically do anything, right? Mental. All of these things need to be worked on equally. And this is one of the things I saw when I ran the store downtown Austin. I would have people come in, there again, I have this, this, and this. Another person, I have this, this, and this. Same thing. But if they weren't willing to work on all of it, they didn't get anywhere. The herbs didn't work. And it's because the herbs didn't work because they weren't working on their emotional selves. They weren't working on their spiritual selves. And I'm not saying you have to put, 100% of you have to have a balance. And you have to realize that all this comes together. And that's where flower essences really come in, because flower essences help you work with the emotional side of things. So we're working with the physical side with herbs and our nutrition. We're working on the mental side by learning about how our gut microbiome and brain is connected. We're working on our spiritual selves, however that works best suited for each individual. And all of that coming together is going to give us optimal health. So you can see here on this page that talks about a bouquet of remedies. We've got different types of remedies. Now, distress remedy is the one you should always have in your herbal medicine cabinet. This is a particular combination of flower essences that work for trauma and grief situations. So if there's a car accident, or if there's a loss of somebody, if somebody gets hurt really bad, and they're freaking out, this distress remedy will help take the edge off of that emotion. It will help kind of put it more in perspective so you can gain control and decide what you want to do with it. So this is something you always kind of want to have around. Keep cool specifically promotes forgiveness, tolerance, and acceptance of others. Find strength works great for people who wish to set healthy boundaries and have the confidence to communicate openly. Release it helps people find comfort, helps them let go of the past, and face the future. These are the people who just have a really hard time forgetting, right? This helps them release it so they can move forward and live presently, not pastly. Open heart provides support while facing suppressed emotional pain. There again, we can't suppress it. We've got to let it out. We've got to experience it and allow it to have its motion in, out, and through us. Be courageous. Bolster self-confidence to pursue the goals and directions you desire in life. And be responsible. Promote self-responsibility to move your life in a more positive direction. This is also really good for caretakers. Because caretakers, as I said earlier, have a tendency to do everything for everybody else, but they're not responsible at taking care of themselves. So this particular one is really good for people who work in any kind of caregiving situation or are caregiving a lot of people, children, elderly, whatever it may be. But I want to bring those out so that way you guys are aware of those. Of course, all of these combinations are available at Nature's Sunshine. If you want to try these, you can try some of the distress remedy. I'll help you with it because you want to put it underneath the tongue. Whenever you take a flower essence, you always pop it on the bottom about 8 times. Put it underneath the tongue and let it settle there. You can never take too much. You can give it to children. You can give it to dogs. You can give it to about anybody or anything because it will be very helpful in helping those animals as well as humans with adjusting with whatever may be happening. So flower essence is something that's really good to kind of have a grip on. I used to actually blend flower essences for people specifically. I would have a questionnaire. I would have them fill it out, and then I would go through my survey on it, and I would put them together for people to help address specifically. And I did it with Kella when she was a baby because she just never would stop crying. That baby was unhappy from the moment she came out for some reason. And she's still, ah! She's gonna love that if she sees it on video. I told her that the other day. Like, you came out, ah! And you're still, ah! You know, but let's address it. Let's figure out what's going on. This will help herbs work more because you'll be getting a handle on the emotions and you'll be able to redirect them more positively. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a handout on distress remedy as well. That way you can know a little bit more about.
Does she carry that next door?
She carries one of them. I'm not sure which one she carries, but all you got to do is ask her, and she will carry more of them because we've talked about them before. And I know she was carrying one. All right, so let's go to our homework page, number 68. So for this week, for our homework, we will be setting a SMART goal for the week. Hopefully it'll be something centered around checking our emotions, maybe looking into our past, looking into habits we've had before, or if we still need to work on getting that water in, keep that as a SMART goal too. We're going to read module number 8. Record any moments when you want to eat emotionally so you can start being aware. Write down 3 things you've achieved already. I really would like to see you guys do this. Write 3 things down you've already achieved in the last 8 weeks being in this class. And I want you to write down 3 things that you love about yourself. Can anybody think of one for themselves right now and want to share? Alicia, I know you got one.
I love working with children.
Love working with children, and you love the fact that you get to do so. And you're good at it, aren't you? She is. I know she is. Those are things we need to celebrate for ourselves because we're all here for a reason. Okay, and we need to know what those reasons are. The more connected we are with those reasons and why we love ourselves, the more we can be of that we're meant to be, what we're put here for. I also want you to think before you eat. Is this emotional or is it physical hunger? And of course, I want you guys also to be looking for other ways to deal with emotional distresses. Whether it's journaling, meditating, praying, walking, getting a boxing glove and just going at it. Whatever it is. Find what your outlet is so you can deal with those emotions and let them out. Okay? So next week we get to talk about stress. That's a really good one. We're going to talk about stress, how stress affects our gut microbiome, and how we can better handle stress as well. We are doing a smoothie tonight called a peachy green. And what I'm doing is I'm actually going to be adding, where did it go? It's in my box over there. Anyways, I'm going to be adding spirulina. I got some handouts on spirulina, but spirulina is excellent for vegetarians because I think I mentioned it once before. Spirulina itself, when you take 4 of them, will equal the same amino acid profile as a 4-ounce steak. So it's really good to get. It was one of the very few plants out there that has the same amino acids in it that you can get from a steak. And I'm actually going to add some to our smoothie tonight. And the reason I'm doing that is because we may be into week 8. We may still be struggling to get our greens. And we may need to think we need to do more greens. This is a really good way to do it. There's also another product that you could take a look at to adding to your smoothies called Green Zone. And Green Zone is a powder or a capsule mix. And I have a couple of my children just love it when I put the Green Zone in their smoothies in the morning. You take a couple scoops out, just add it to your smoothie, blend it away with your fruit, your ice, whatever kind of milk, coconut water or water that you're using, and you get more green power. So if you're looking for more ways to get green in, you can open up the capsules of spirulina, which I'm going to do tonight and show you in our smoothies, or you can actually get the Green Zone also and add that as well. So if you're needing more green power, there are options. I know sometimes you just feel like a rabbit eating all that lettuce and greens, but you know, I know Lynn adds hers fresh to her smoothie pretty much every morning so she can get them in. But if you need simple ways to do it, these are awesome ways to do it. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. As I said, next week we get to talk about stress. There's several of you who are going to be doing your measurements next week, so I think you probably know who that is, so we'll make sure we get those done before class. Have a wonderful, healthy week, and I'll see you next week.